Hello. So, welcome to this course of this cloud computing. We will continue our talk on different aspects of cloud. So, today what we are trying to look at that what is the underlying technology or underlying protocol which binds together. As we have discussed that there are in cloud there are various type of services or XaaS, anything as a service type or anything as a service type of model service model it works. So, we need to have some way or other a protocol which allows us to interoperate between different things. Now, if you look at whenever a user or a customer or a consumer of cloud who is taking the service of the cloud provider. So, it is independent of where how this cloud is hosted at the provider ends, how the user client is accessing the things. So, it is more of a service oriented architecture what we have what we basically implement in these cases. So, web service oriented architecture or web services as we have as we know that allows us to interoperate between loosely coupled heterogeneous services to achieve some expected output, right. So, all this this type of service exchanges or service driven architecture, the basic one of the basic component or one of the basic building block is XML, right. So, what we will discuss today maybe one or two lectures that the basics of XML. What I understand that most of you are used to XML or you know what is XML, but for making it little those who are not accustomed or making that looking at all sorts of viewers and listeners of this particular lecture series, we will discuss a very basics of XML and try to see what are its properties and how it allows us to interoperate, right. So, if we look at XML, so it is acronym XML has evolved from a imply from a growing family of software tool, XML standards and ideas. So, what we will try to see that what are the different properties of XML, how how it allows us to interoperate, what are the different type of parsers or what are the type of other technologies which are there in the XML. So, it is extensible markup language, right. We are used to HTML, hypertext markup language, which are primarily used in this world of internet to visualize document, right. So, XML is a extensible markup language and unlike HTML, which is more of a data display or data representation language or information representation language, XML is more of a data transformation language, right. So, it allows us we will see gradually it allows us to achieve interoperations, right. So, the syntax for encoding is text based. So, word, phrases, numbers. So, it is a readable. A text based syntax XML is well written using printable Unicode character, right. No explicit binary data character encoding issues, etc., right. It is extensible. XML lets you define your own elements, right, like data types, like unlike HTML, those who are used to HTML or those who have seen the HTML, we have a predefined set of tags, right. Whereas, in XML you can define your own elements or own tags. So, it is within a constraint of syntax rule, definitely you can define within a constraint of a syntax rule. So, and it is also sometimes referred to a universal format, right. The syntax rule ensure that all XML processing software must identically handle given piece of XML data. So, it is universal. So, if you have XML data and XML processing software or say XML parser, it will be able to handle all sort of XML universally, right. So, that is the typical basic characteristics of XML, which makes it ubiquitous. So, if you can read and process it, so anybody else, this is the means basic slogan. So, if one end if you can read and process it, so that everybody else can read and process the same data. So, it is if I look at a simple example, like we have taken from some internet resource. So, that there are some of the things, like there is a XML declaration, like we says the version, and there is a will come slowly will come to those things. There is a XML namespace, and there are definition of different elements and type of things here, right. So, these are different XML tags. If you see, these tags are user defined, right. Tags can be user defined. That means, I can define my own tags, right. These part orders or description or part number, these are all user defined tags, right. So, unlike HTML, where the tags are predefined, you cannot define your own tags. Here you can define your own tags. Now, if you define your own tags, the next things which come into play, that there can be, you need to say that how tags, how things are defined. Like I say, I define a tag called table. Now, whether I am referring to the table, whether this table refers to some furniture classes or group in the category of furniture, or the table is basically in the category of word processing or spreadsheet, right. So, that is important, right. I need to know that if I define a tag, or if there are, I am using table, one from this furniture category and another for the word processing category, then I have to define the things, or how the other end knows that what I am looking at. So, there is a concept of XML namespace, which primarily allows us to define my own user defined elements and other things. So, if we look at the XML document, it is hierarchical and it is a structured information, right. So, if I look at this document, so it is a part order, right. It is the topmost node, which is a XML namespace, that it says that part order is of this namespace, and it has different levels, or it basically hierarchical, and we generate a XML tree, right. So, XML comes with this property of a hierarchical structured information, which can be represented by the XML, by a XML tree. So, again if we come back to our basic premise or basic definition. So, it is simple, unlike HTML, like HTML, but not quite so simple. HTML is very vanilla type. So, strict syntax rules to eliminate syntax error. So, XML has a very strict syntax rule. Syntax defines structure, hierarchical, and name structural element names, and it is self describing data. So, it is I can have my own data which is self describing, is extensible. Unlike HTML, vocab is not fixed in case of a XML. You can define your own vocab or tags or elements, and that means that you can basically extend this data. Designed for distributed environment, right. You like HTML, it is designed for distributed environment. It says it is able to talk to, or it able to communicate or interface or interoperate with different systems in a, or different nodes of a distributed systems. So, can create your own language of tags and elements, can have data all over the place, can retrieve and use it reliably. So, that means it is distributed, can mix different data types together, unlike HTML. So, HTML can't do it, but in XML I can have multiple sources and mix them and generate another data out of it. It is like that I from the two repositories I take different component of data and finally generate another data which is a mix of these two things. This HTML, XML allows me to do that. It is extremely helpful in different cases, like you are getting two type of data, one from your, say, for in academic institution, one data I am getting from academic section, other may be from hall management center that regarding students, and then I want to club this data and try to find out some things, like I want to find out that who is the best all rounder of this particular semester or particular batch or particular year. So, I need to look at different student activity data, student academic data and other type of data if possible, and then generate another data set. So, this sort of distributed diverse data set on the fly, how you can basically interoperate, how you can mix them and generate things, is this XML is one of the helpful in this type of cases. Okay. So, it is a mix of different data types together. Now, other access is how to process XML data. So, one thing what we have seen, it is a tree type of structure. Now, in order to unlike other standard like HTML or where you have no user defined things. So, you know the not only the syntax, there are elements etc. defined, but here in this case I need to first of all find out that what are the in number of element, what are the whichever is user defined, I need to find out that what they mean in the first place. So, in order to process this data, suppose I have a data like this taken from some internet resources, like file transfer date is so much, type of things is interbank and so much amount, transit ID, account ID and type of things, different type of transactions. So, it is like bank transactions, some are internal, that is within the bank, and some are interbank or between different banks. So, then how to process this data? So, for this I need to first of all extract the information from the XML data, right. Then my processing will be going on. It is basically enveloped in a XML type of language, and then I have to extract this and process it using some application, some sort of a tool that I have to extract that data. That what we do is doing through a XML parser. So, XML parser processing model. So, what it does, that XML data, the parser it passes to the parser and there is a parser interface, then XML based application on the other side. So, XML data, then the parser it extract the things, that XML based applications are triggered, right. So, the parser must verify the XML data is syntactically correct. So, what is the role of the parser? First of all, the parser should verify the XML data is syntactically correct. So, there is no syntax error in the data. Secondly, such data is said to be well formed, right. If it is a syntactically correct, it is a well formed XML. So, the minimum requirement to be a XML is this, it should be well formed, so that it is processable, right. I can process this data. The parser must stop processing if the data is not well formed, right. So, that is stop processing and throw exception to the XML based application. So, that if it is a if it is not a well formed, that means it is if it is syntactically not a correct data. So, if we look back, the XML processing rule including different parts, so there is a concept called DTD, that is document type declaration. So, what is important for any XML data, like we have seen in case of a databases like relational databases. So, what you do, you basically define a table, right, or multiple table. So, where the data is different or in form of records or different rows or tuples what we say. Now, this in order to define this table, we need to define the structure of the table, what we say schema of the table, right. So, that if there are different variable of this table, then which variable is which schema and type of things we need to define, right. So, in case of XML also, as these are user defined structure and it is hierarchical, and I do not know that if you define a particular element, then what are the level of other elements and what are the type of elements are there, and that is why here also we need to define some sort of a schema, or in this previously we used to use that stuff called document type declaration. So, first of all you need to declare the document type. Now, based on the document type, if it is a then the rest of the data is there. So, one way is one of the work of the parser is to look at whether it is syntactically correct, like you are syntactically, other than you need to look at whether it follows that particular document definition, right, or if it is I say that syntactically correct is a well formed, then if it is following that that schema or document type definition, then I say it is a valid one, valid XML. So, the while getting the XML data, the parser consult this DTD if it is syntactically correct to say that the XML is valid for this particular type of operations it is looking for. So, so we have XML parser, DTDs and other internal entities, like the parser processes the DTD content, identifies the internal entity and checks that the each entity is well formed, right. So, in turn it checks that whether each entity is well formed. There are explicit syntax rule for DTD content, well formed XML must be correct here also, right. So, what is there are explicit syntax rules for DTD content. So, the well formed XML must be correct in this respect also. The parser then replaces every occurrence of entity reference by a referenced entity, right. So, does the recursively within the entity. So, it reference entity by the referenced entity it replace. So, that it is entity reference. The resolved data object is then made available to the XML application. So, when it goes to this XML application, if we just remember this previous picture, then by that time it has done its well formed checking, syntactical checking, and also the checking with the DTD, that is what we can say some sort of a validating the particular document before pushing it to the XML application. So, in XML processing there can be external entities, right. Here it was internal entities, previously what we have seen, that is internal entities means that DDT is defined here only or the schema is defined here. So, external entity is referred by a URL. So, it basically referred to external structure or schema to look at the entities. So, the parser processes the DTD content, identify the external entities and tries to resolve them, right. The parser then replaces every occurrence of the entity reference by the referenced entity and does so recursively with all entities like with the internal entities. For the external also it finds out and go on replacing this. But what if parser can't find the external entity due to maybe due to firewall blockage etc. That depends on the application and parser type. There are two type of XML parser, one must retrieve all entities, one can ignore them if they cannot find it. So, it based on the what is your basic policy or processing rule for these parsers. So, accordingly we have two type of XML parser. One is a validating parser, that means must retrieve all elements and must process all DTD content, right. Will stop processing, indicate a failure if it is cannot, right. So, what we are trying to say that in a case of a validating parser, it should conform to the schema definition or the DTD content, right. Non-validating parser will try to retrieve all elements defined in the entity, but will cease processing the DTD content in the first entity if it can't find, right. So, it based on validating parser and non-validating parser, application behavior will depend on the parser type definitely. So, the application how it will work is based on that what sort of parser you are having. So, we add on something more like here XML data, then parser, then it goes to the parser interface to the XML application, right. So, DTD is linked with the parser, which gives relationship, behavior dependency on parser nature. So, these are the things which the DTD provides to this parser for checking for validating, well formed and validating, right. So, there are some special issues, the characters and character sets, right. So, like the XML specification defines what character can be used in white space tag, and like you cannot use FD character nil as white space tag. What if you want to include character not defined in the encoding characteristics, right. So, there are different way out for handling this sort of character sets, right. So, XML provides some mechanisms to handle this sort of character sets. Now, how do I define language dialects? Finally, what we are trying to look at is basically how to define an XML document and how it can basically interact with each other, right. So, as we know that in a service oriented architecture, we are having three major components, right, like consumer, provider and a registry or type of services, right, or some sort of a registry repository. Now, whenever there is a communication between these different service provider, service consumer, service registry, what we need to look at is that how this data communication, how this communication will be executed in a ubiquitous way. Like as we know that this is SOAP messaging may be one mechanisms, which is primarily an XML document, right, like SOAP, WSDL, UDDI all are basically XML documents, right. So, if we look at, so two ways to doing that: XML document type declaration, part of core XML spec, XML schema, new XML specification which allows for stronger constraint or XML document. So, what we have looked at is DTD. Now, 2001 the XML schema or XSD has been defined. So, it is a higher version of or spec, it is a new spec of defining the schema or the structure of the XML document. And one basic or fundamental difference is there, other than they primarily do the major same type of job. One is that XML schema is written in XML, right, whereas DTD is usually written in a different way. So, that now my handling of the schema and XML data goes hand in hand. So, adding dialect specification implies two classes of XML. One we called well formed, an XML document that is syntactically correct, right. So, what we say it is a well formed XML, right, and whereas there is a thing called valid XML, right. So, XML document that is both well formed and consistent with the specific DTD or XSD or schema, right. So, these are called valid. So, it should be well formed along with a that it is basically conforming to the schema, that means it is a valid system. So, all valid XML document are well formed. So, what DTDs and other schemas specify? Allow elements and attribute data, hierarchical nesting, rules, element content and type restrictions. So, this is a schema or thing specify. So, it is not the data. So, the XML schema or the DTD does not contain any XML data, right. Information is contained in the XML file, but the structure is defined here. So, this makes a unique property, like whenever they say two organizations A, B want to exchange information. So, what they are looking for is, first of all, they should agree upon the structure of that exchange protocol, right. Like if say for example, IIT Kharagpur is having say data transfer, say payment gateway or some payment transfer, payment interaction with bank or any financial organization. What is important, that first of all the structure of a student data and at the IIT Kharagpur end, and the way they stored in the State Bank, they are, or any bank, State Bank or Punjab Bank or anything, any bank, there should be the banking organization, there should be agreement. For that need, I do not require any data to be exchanged, right. So, that is the basic beauty of the thing, right. So, for that I do not require any data to be exchanged. What we require is more of the structure to be exchanged, and incidentally exchanging structure is not that critical, right. So, the data, there are privacy issues, there are issue of maintenance cost towards collecting maintenance of this data. If you just like that share, then it is basically go on out of your hand. So, that is why the data has a lot of issues, but if I say that, see, in IIT Kharagpur the student structure is like this. So, student schema is like this, right. I do not tell that how many students are there, what are the properties, but the student schema is like this. Then if it is interacting with some other organization, the schema wise integration is possible. So, that is why allows element, attribute types, hierarchical nesting rules, element content, type restrictions here. Schemas are more powerful than DTDs. They are often used for type validation or for relating database schemas to the XML models, right. Schemas are more powerful, much more powerful than DTDs, right. They not only keep the structure, but that can be used for different type of things, like using the schema I can create a database table and then I can transfer the data ubiquitously among the two things, right. So, this gives a extra handling to these schemas. So, these days we are primarily using schemas, and schemas plays an important role in handling this sort of interoperations between different parties. So, if you look at the example DTD as a part of a document, so there are document type, elements, transfer, this is a some other type of elements, right. Now, if you look at this is not exactly following the truly the XML file or XML document, right, whereas in case of a schema it is represented as a XML document, right. And there can be external DTD like document like there is a foo.org something .dtd. So, it refers externally when it needs to refer it. So, this allows us to refer to some others DTD and see that what sort of data is coming, right. Suppose I want to look at, I am consuming a data from another provider and I want to know that what sort of data is coming up, like whether they are ordered in a particular fashion, whether there is a typical hierarchy. So, at the other end I can do a external DDD and check it that what sort of data. So, that allows my parser to filter and extract the data I need for my end to process. So, my objective is that I am getting a data from a source, I want to filter it, extract the portion of the data I want to do, and may need some transformation, like I want to change the unit from centigrade to Fahrenheit or meter to feet and type of things. Even that requires some transformation that I can do at this end, and then I put to my applications which work on this. We will continue our discussion on XML, some other properties of XML to to see that how these are useful for this interoperation, and how these are useful for realization of a cloud, especially the software as a service type of models. Thank you.